What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line. Bubba here, great to be here. And of course, what could be better? Football season started over the weekend, and we, of course, college season started. Now up come the pros, and I think is at the same time the market correction has already started. You know, as we always like to do, we like to look back at what happened last week, and as we look back, we saw a market that had a couple of rally days, but at the end of it, when you look at it, markets made lower highs and they made lower lows. So we have now broken the trend of always making higher highs and higher lows. We're going the other way, which means when you look at markets now, you want to look to be a seller into rallies instead of a buyer into dips. That's just a subtle little change, but there's been a lot of talk. You know, if you've heard, we talked a little bit about last week, the Hindenburg omen. Now, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big believer in that crap, but it is something that is out there on the street. And all that really means is that markets are making more 52-week lows than 52-week highs. If you look at the items that really affect the markets, you can look at the Russell, which is the small cap index, which is continuing to make lows and is actually down on the year. That is typically a very big warning sign, because the Russell is where are basically American companies, small caps, small builders that grow up to be big companies. And if they're struggling, it means that America is struggling. And I think that there's no doubt that we are struggling. I think there's no doubt that the middle class is still stuck in a recession. You know, you can listen to everybody all you want about how great everything is, but we just saw the Three-Stooges meet in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That would be Draghi, Yellen, and Kuroda, the central bankers of the world, the guys who like to put money in your pockets. They want to relieve your cash by getting more inflation so they can tax you more. But anyways, that's another story. In the meantime, they tell you everything is good. Well, if everything is so good, why can't they raise rates? This is a problem. If business is great and money is great and everything is wonderful, why aren't rates going higher? That should be clue number one. That's why these small caps are struggling, because they have trouble accessing capital that they need. That's why entrepreneurs are struggling. That's why the employment is struggling. If we look at the overall employment, full-time jobs, even though my president, Mr. Donald Trump, has been bragging about jobs, which I wish he would stop doing that already, but full-time employment is lower than it was at the beginning of the year. So that's not a good sign. Yes, they're creating more new jobs, but they're creating more new lousy jobs. You know, you can only go with so many $9 an hour jobs or $10 an hour jobs. It just doesn't work for an economy, because if you're only making $9 or $10 an hour, you can't afford to pay for health insurance. That's more than $9 or $10 an hour. That's one of the big problems that we have with the insurance, is that you can't afford to pay for it, and the employees don't want to pay, the employers don't want to pay for it, so it becomes a much bigger problem, which is why many people still depend on the emergency room where they don't get turned down. But anyways, let's get back to the markets. So we're looking at the markets, and what the markets have now is the transports, which used to be a big factor, have been drastically lower. So everything doesn't look that good. All right, even Amazon. Now again, Amazon's a great company. I have no problem. I use them all the time. But Amazon is down about 10 or 12% from its all-time high. So it's now into what we would call correction territory. You know, you cannot continue to push these stocks higher on nothing. And that's what we're seeing. You saw Tesla, their bond offering is failing. Why? Because they lose $5,000 in the car. Who wants to own it? I love the car, but you can't make any money. Elon Musk has used all his magic to get all these tax credits for the rich. Remember, the people that were buying his cars initially were people that were paying $100,000 for a car. Now, I don't pay $100,000 for a car, and I don't know how many you do, but certainly the people that are able to spend $100,000 don't really need the tax credit. And that's one of the fallacies. That ties into now what's going on in the auto industry altogether. Our subprime auto debt now is higher than the housing bubble of 2007 and 8. Think about that for a minute. The debt we see today is higher than it was in 2007 and 8. That doesn't include the student debt. We are so far above that. But again, listen to the Three-Stooges. Everything's great. There's no problem. Why? Because they think they can just go ahead and print more money. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work. Eventually, someone's going to have to pay that bill. Eventually, these debts are going to have to be relieved. And of course, eventually, you know who's paying for that, right? So just remember that. Anything that goes wrong in this country, you and I are paying for it because it's going to come back to you in a form of taxes. That's the way it goes. And that's why the system, as it sits, is busted. Because the question I like to ask, and I probably ask it every time, but I'm going to ask it again anyways, because why isn't it that the government doesn't have to live on a budget like you and I do? If you and I did what they did, we would be either in bankruptcy court or in jail. So why is it that they don't have to do that? And why is it that we have people running the Fed and the central banks that wouldn't be able to find their way home if you'll drop them off in the middle of a forest? These are people that are extremely intelligent people, all have high-level degrees, but they have no common sense. So where are we going to go when there's no common sense? Everybody out there knows, especially more people that work with machines, people, farmers, producers. Do you have time to read the manual when your tractor breaks down in the middle of a run? You have to figure out how to get it running and fix it. You can't analyze it later and say, well, I'll take care of it later. That's the same thing as we hear from these central bankers. Japan's been saying it for almost 30 years now. Okay? Well, it'll get better. Things are better. They're better. If they're better, why is everything depreciating? If they're better, why are grain prices down at lows we haven't seen for a long time? If they're better, why is gold only up to just about $1,300 when it should be almost $1,400 based on the price of where the dollar's at? So this manipulation that we continue to see from the central banks, the currency wars, they take turns. Okay, I go back to where we have a little bit of proof of this, of February 11th of 2016, when that was the absolute bottom of the market at the time. And that's when Janet Yellen called Mario Draghi, she called Campbell from England, and Jamie Dimon bought the absolute low of the market. And the markets took off, and then all these big announcements came out. So you would tell me, is that coincidence or was it planned? I mean, I happen to tend to think more that it's planned. I don't buy into this, that it was just purely a coincidence. You know, Ben Bernanke started these currency wars, and it's all it is manipulation. Now, again, I never understood the fact when you reduce the value of my dollar, why is it better for me? I don't get it, all right? It doesn't fit with me, but they say it works. But of course, that's that Keynesian view of the economy. And I'm not saying that anything is any better. I think there are probably good parts of all different types of systems. But the one thing I know for sure, if you continue to push away debt, if you continue to push it down the road, somebody's got to pay for it eventually. And that's the problem we have. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to step out here for a break. This is the Bubba's Bottom Line, and we're going to go be back in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, make sure you check out the Bubba Show every day, 2 to 3 Eastern at libertytalk.fm. Bubba's Bottom Line will be right back with more after the break. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line, and of course, still me, still Bubba hanging out with you. All right, just a snippet note. Charles Barkley named a white supremacist. How's that for the world that we live in today? Okay, Charles Barkley is called a white supremacist. I don't know. You tell me. I can't see that, but hey, it is what it is. But you know, as we look at overall what's going on around us, we look at, and we're going to talk more about this because you know what's going to be my opinion piece today, right? Later. But when we look around, we have all these people trying to live in the past. You know, I'm tired of hearing about Ronald Reagan. Yes, Ronald Reagan was a great president. He is probably, in my lifetime, he's probably the greatest president until the one we have now, except the one we have now can't get any help, okay? But from an overall trying to run things the right way, probably the best there was. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It matters who gets the job done. And that separation that we now have has really become brutal, but that's going to be more late. We'll get more of that later. But now what you're seeing here is major problems. We've got Dana Lash, if you've caught her, who now represents the NRA. Now, does anybody out there think that a crook is not going to get a gun? I don't understand why so many people are against the Second Amendment and against owning a gun. Because one thing we know for sure, the criminals are always getting the guns. You can say whatever you want about it, but any criminal who wants it is going to get it, okay? You know, the guys in, for example, I live in Chicago. There's the murder capital of the world, okay? Do you think those guns are legal guns or they're illegal guns? Well, we all know they're illegal guns because they're always available. Is there any doubt that the crooks will always get what they want? Do you realize that the crooks are always ahead of everybody else because the governments and the people in charge don't want to be ahead of the scale. They want to wait to react until it's too late. That is something that if you look at Donald Trump, he doesn't want to react. He wants to go after it ahead of time. But you look at this whole model, all right, and they're going after the NRA's advertising, okay, because they're calling the NRA advertising threatening to them because we're coming to get you, right? And really, it's trying to bring light to the fact that, hey, if you have a right if you want to. Now, in Illinois, you have to go to school if you want to own a gun. I mean, me personally, I don't own a gun, and I'm not going to own a gun because I'd be afraid I'd shoot myself. But at the end of the day, people have to understand that those are our rights. And why do you want to force somebody who wants to maybe defend his home or defend his family or her home or her family? Why do you want to force them to go out and buy it illegally somewhere else? When if you let them buy it legally, it can be more controlled. Because we can't put the crooks in this equation because they're going to buy anyways. So why do you think that it's going to be different? That's what I can't comprehend from the other side that's so against guns. You want to disarm people that could actually possibly use them and save you, and go ahead and let the people that and arm the people that you don't want to have guns. Because they're, again, for the 50th time today, those people are getting their guns. All right, there's no doubt in our minds. If we can go back to the days of the Saturday Night Special, all right, those guns were not legal guns. Those are guns that were made for one purpose, and this is the problem. So, NRA, I commend you. Jana Lash, I think you're really good at what you do. I understand it, and again, I can understand the fear, but again, all I have to do is look at it from a logic problem. Crooks are getting guns. There ain't nothing about it. There's nothing you can do about that, okay? Now, there's a big stink about Goldman Sachs raising bond money to buy bonds from Venezuela. Now, they bought bonds for basically nothing. You know, Venezuela obviously is under utter turmoil. They're going to collapse. I mean, Maduro's a crook. I mean, is there any doubt? The whole regime is a crook. Of course, that's what Bernie Sanders and everyone wants here is socialism, so that they can be the crooks. But at the end of the day, they're crooks. They've stolen all the money. They took every big dime and dollar that came out of that country with all the oil that they sold at the highest prices, and they put it in their pocket. In the meantime, all the people are starving. But throughout all this, Goldman Sachs, there was an investment they made. Now, if you're an investor, is there any difference in investing in a country that you don't live in? Okay, you don't have to like their politics, but Goldman Sachs aren't politicians. They're in business to make money. They're in business to make their clients money. Now, I don't like Goldman Sachs personally. I mean, I think they do a lot of things that are not nice to average investors. I think a lot of their calls are not good. I think when they tell you they're selling gold, it means they're really buying gold. When they tell you they're buying something, they're really selling. I mean, they do that, the spoofing word, right? That was the big word of Hillary Clinton back a while ago, spoofing, okay? They spoof the markets, but everybody spoofs the markets. That is not something that should even be talked about. Because if you've ever sold a home, you're spoofing your home to make the buyer pay more. So let's not kid each other, right? Anyway, so they put in billions of dollars into these bonds, all right? In the meantime, they want to make their clients money. And everybody's in outrage. How can they do that? Well, what do I care? If they can make money, okay, they're taking a risk that they have a shot to make money. Well, in the meantime, the government just came out and said they're exempt. Now, they're okay. It's okay that they did that. And I thought it was okay to be in it. I don't know what the big thing it was about them raising money and about them buying bonds in Venezuela. What difference does it make? I mean, you buy bonds, investor advisors, they're looking to buy things on sale. Puerto Rican bonds, listen, we go back to the 70s and 80s, New York bonds, okay? Everybody was buying New York bonds. They didn't think that everybody would go break. Nobody wants to buy Illinois bonds right now because they're probably going to go bust. But in the meantime, it's an investment, okay? So do I have to agree with their politics? Do people not invest in Russia? Do people not invest in China? You think China's so clean with everything they got there? I mean, they don't tell the truth anyway. So what, you think that everything's great in China? Come on. Let's not, you want to pick on Goldman Sachs, pick on them for insider information that they have access to. And I'm not accusing them, but I wouldn't be surprised. Let's worry about JP Morgan. Let's worry about the whale trade of, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. You don't think the guy made that trade 1,000 times and made them maybe trillions of dollars, whatever the numbers are. He got caught one time. So they fired him, they gave him a severance package, and they paid a $5 billion fine. Okay, so what? That's the way, listen, when you allow the government to overgrow everything and you allow everything to be overregulated, what do you think you're left with? You're left with only people who can tell the government to go fish off, right? Because they're not going to do anything about it. They're going to pay their fine and they're going to move on, which is why they torture all the little businesses, which is why there is no more little businesses, because little businesses can't compete. This is the whole crux of what's going on now, is a little guy can't compete because they can't get money. And the sad thing about it is a little company, if they need a regulator or compliance officers, they have to pay the same thing that JP Morgan does. But JP Morgan does $9 gazillion and the little guy does $1 million. But he's paying the same salary. How's it going to work? All right. This is the bigger problem that nobody ever, again, these are things we don't want to talk about. We hide from these things because that's the problem. And that's why there will probably be in this country, again, at some point, another revolution. The things that are happening today are no different than what happened during the Boston Tea Party. Overtaxation, right? Unfair practices. This is all goes on every single day. But of course, now you bring in Steve Mnuchin, right? And he's promised 5 months ago, he said on Neil Cavuto's show, he said, guaranteed we're going to have tax cuts by August. Oh, wait, it's September already. Where's the tax cuts? And now he says he might be wrong. Now, again, I don't blame him. Listen, I've said all along, and I'll continue to say it right now, there will be no tax cuts. Donald Trump, under the current administration and under the current way we sit, will never get anything done. Why? Because you have too many people that are trying to dethrone him. You have too many people against him. You have too many people that don't care about anything and don't want to lose their jobs. Remember, when you have career politicians, okay, when you have people that are living on different laws in different ways that you and I live, right? Now they don't have Obamacare. They don't live. Even, senators and congressmen are not even subject to sexual harassment claims. Okay, so when you live under different set of laws, what do you care? Okay, we've got the debt ceiling coming up in the next, I think, 30 days. Now I'm hoping, and I think I said this a couple weeks ago, I'm hoping Donald Trump has the ability and the stones to shut down the government. Okay, I'd like to see him shut it down for quite a while. Now that won't happen because you know he doesn't want to be the guy that did this. But nobody's going to downgrade our debt. Do you really believe that somebody's going to downgrade the United States of America's debt? First of all, we owe everybody. What are they going to do? If we default, what happens to everybody else? Right? So let's not make a big deal out of this. You can bet your sweet potatoes that they are sitting in the room right now, Pelosi and McConnell, okay, sitting there hand in hand, and they're talking about how they can screw the American people because they're going to arrive at a debt ceiling. Now they're out, hate each other in the front. In the back, they have a bottle of scotch and a cigar. Maybe Pelosi's having a little whatever the stuff you put in your head, bring the wrinkles out. But in the meantime, you've got all these things going on, and they'll come up with a debt ceiling solution. Why? Because if they don't get paid. All right. Remember, they'll come out, and everybody said over this last couple of months, we want to do it for the American people. Yeah, right. They want to do it for themselves. They could care less. Right? They want to keep their jobs. They like that $200,000 a year payroll and that pension after they go, and all the perks that go along with it. And there's a lot of perks when you're a politician at the way you can spend that campaign money you take in. There's a lot of things that go on that are not quite, we would call them shady if we were looking at them. But at the end of the day, we don't know. But I guarantee you there's things go on that you and I you'd turn green if you knew what they were doing with some of that money that you gave. In the meantime, there's just so much going on that it's not going to resolve itself. That's the real problem. Donald Trump is not a politician. He's too much into doing the right thing. Now, you don't have to like him. Listen, I can see where people don't like him. He can be pompous. He can be brash. But he's a CEO. That's what he's trying to be. He's trying to be the CEO of the United States of America. He's trying to turn this ridiculous government and this spending into a real business. We actually have to work off of a real budget. But of course, the people that are involved don't want that because that cuts into their own. And those are the real problems that we see here. And until that changes, until we can get these people out, it's not going to change. That's the problem. That's why none of these laws are going to get passed, because any one of them that they pass would affect the jobs of some of these people involved. We're going to stop by here for a break. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd, Bubba Horwitz. And, of course, make sure you get the Bubba Show every single day, 2 to 3 Eastern at LibertyTalk.fm. Don't forget, got to go watch it. You got to listen, because I can be a little harder on that one. Anyways, we'll be right back with more Bubba's Bottom Line after the break. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd, Bubba Horwitz, of course. And, of course, you know I always save the best for last, my commentary. And, you know, when we look back, you talk about the past. I don't know if anybody realizes how backwards this country has gone in the last couple of years, and especially in the last 6 months. But we are living in the past, and this is more of the grudge and more of the problem that we're seeing here, and which brings us back to the usual problem, the government. But yes, I said earlier, Ronald Reagan was a great president, okay, as far as I know. Listen, I'm not in the inner workings, but it seemed to me that he was pretty straight up. It seemed to me that he tried to get things done, and he did get things done. Now, of course, they won't let Donald Trump get things done, but when did it become acceptable to hope the president gets assassinated? All right, you're a state senator from Missouri. I mean, now why? I don't know why she's still in office. I don't know why she hasn't either been fired. I thought that was a jailable offense, and I heard the CIA is working on it, but I don't know. Okay, but to me, that's pretty nasty. That's pretty crappy. It used to be that news people, newsmen, newswomen, reported the news, not their stupid opinions. I mean, I think we've become moronic in the things that we hear and see every day now. And that takes us into, from the newsroom to where we all have all the media on both sides, but more to the left, as we all know. I mean, most media is left because most people are left because the biggest states in the country are left. But again, there's nothing wrong with being left. You know, at one point in time, it was like this. We were down the straight line, and the left had a couple of issues that they wanted to take care of, a little bit more help for the poor, fine. They had their issues on some human rights, fine. And the right had theirs, but they weren't like this. They were like this. And you had on both sides. And a truly independent candidate would have a true choice, and it was really more of a moral issue of who they wanted to vote for versus a fiscal issue, because the fiscal issues used to be very same, very close. So now we're no longer in that neighborhood. We've got the far to the left, and some of the guys are far to the right. But the far to the left is like lost their mind. I mean, they're talking about now the new Bernie Sanders party, which is going to be socialism. Now, again, I urge you, if you have any clue, or if you have any right or any wanting to vote for a Bernie Sanders type of candidate, I urge you to go look at Venezuela. I urge you to go look anywhere that's had socialism in place. There's one place where it works, and that's in Finland. And that's only because they've got so much money that and so few people based on the amount of money that they can do it there. But anywhere else it doesn't work, okay? And I beg you to look at Venezuela anywhere. If you would do that, that would almost fit into the minds of when they sat there in Jekyll Island in 1913 and put together this Federal Reserve, is almost they wanted to happen, because that takes all the money away from everybody and puts it all in the upper 1%. But in the meantime, we've got late night comedians. Now there used to be Johnny Carson, Joey Bishop, what the hell's the other guy's name? Steve Allen. They used to talk, yeah, they'd give the presidents or the politicians a little jab here and there, but they were nice about it. It wasn't so vicious where you had Kathy Griffin cutting off a head, or you had these guys ridiculing, or you had these actors and actresses that continue to say, well, I'm getting out of this country because this guy is so bad. All those things. We are supposed to be America, not Republicans, not Democrats. You're supposed to be an American first. And what you're supposed to be doing is trying to make the country better at anything it takes. And those of you who like to make these ridiculous, rude, crude, vile jokes about Donald Trump, about the administration, are idiots, okay? Look, at the end of the day, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, those are guys that went on late night TV. They went on the Johnny Carson show. Why? Because they could give a couple of jabs, but everybody knew that you respect the office of the president. That's the transfer of power, okay? Now, if you liked Obama, great. But you should love the country before anything else. And that's the real problem that we're now recognizing. And that's why it's going to end up hurting everybody because of what more of the left is doing. But that's going to hurt everybody at the end of the day, because it's not going to solve any of the issues that we've now got in place. So we're too busy living in the past, and the left, with all their hatred, has turned the clock back 50 years. All right? we need to see Martin Luther King arise from the grave here, because this guy would be going nuts if he could see what was going on with you people. It's totally mind-blowing that we could actually have people act like this and call the president a racist. I mean, this has become so ridiculous that I just don't get it. I don't get where we're at and the hatred that we built here. In the meantime, America should be first. We need to take our time and build a better America. All right? If you think it's good now, well, let's make it better. If you're not happy with the way it is, then we really want to make it better. And if it's great, let's make it greater. Again, with what we're seeing going on now, and this goes to both parties, not just the left, okay? The BS that we watch every single day with McConnell, with any of the others on the right, Pelosi, Schumer, and any of those on the left, okay, they are pulling their own agendas and pulling America apart. That's not where we need to be. We need to be coming together because, again, whether Trump's in for 4 years or 8 years, the people like, her name, Dorothy, the yachts from California, all right, who doesn't know what she's talking about, but just keeps talking, and impeachment. In the meantime, we need to get out of that and we need to get through this, because all we're doing now is wasting good, valuable time when the economy is going to really need people to work and make it better. That's it for this week, everybody. Thank you so much. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horwitz. Make sure you go to LibertyTalk.fm and listen to the Bubba Show every single day, 2 to 3 Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.